The Lifestylist, episode 139, featuring Light Watkins.
I'm Luke Storey, a former celebrity fashion stylist and founder of School of Style. For the past 20 years, I've been relentlessly dedicated to my deepest passion, designing the ultimate lifestyle based on the most powerful principles of health and spirituality. The Lifestylist podcast is a show dedicated to sharing my discoveries and the experts behind them with you. A massive part of my health strategy is the ingestion on a regular basis of medicinal herbs and medicinal mushrooms. And my primary source for those is a company called Four Sigmatic. If you remember way back in the day in episode 8, I had a guest by the name of Taro Isakapula from this company, and we talked all about the power of these amazing herbs and mushrooms. Well, Four Sigmatic do a great job of making them not only potent, but also convenient and delicious. So they make these little packets of herbs that you add to hot water, cold water, or bulletproof coffee, whatever your recipe is. I make them with all kinds of different stuff all the time. It makes a really easy way to get this stuff into your body. And these are herbs that have a real effect on you. It's very powerful stuff. So go to foursigmatic.com, but wait, I'm going to hook it up. When you get to foursigmatic.com, enter the code TheLifestylist at checkout to save 15% off your order. So you can get things like reishi mushrooms, chaga mushrooms, cordyceps, lion's mane, ashwagandha, all the good stuff that really works. So go to foursigmatic.com, enter the code TheLifestylist, and save 15% off your order. All right, you guys, I've got a favorite new product to let you know about. You know I'm into the green juice by Organifi, right? Take that shit every day. Well, now I'm on to their red juice. That's right. It's a red juice powder packed with antioxidants and immune-boosting herbs. It's got reishi, cordyceps, and 11 other superfoods. So the reason I like powders like this is because they're highly concentrated nutrition that's easy to get down the gullet. So you take a big scoop of this, you throw it in some almond milk or some spring water, whatever your drink of choice is, throw it in a blender really quick, or even just stir it up with a spoon. It actually dissolves really easy. It doesn't get all weird and chunky like some powders do. And then you've got the equivalent of basically eating a giant bowl of red fruit that day. But I don't know, it's just got a really good taste too. It tastes like, I don't know, it's sort of like strawberry juice or something like that. It's got a really like red fruity juice. So it's very different than the green powder that they make, which I also like. So check out the red juice by Organifi. You can find that at Organifi.com. That's spelled with an I. Organifi.com/Luke. And the even better part is that you save 20% off if you use our show code. And that code is, drumroll please, Lifestylist. So go to Organifi.com/Luke, use the code Lifestylist, and save 20% off your order of the red juice or any other product that they make. You know where you are? You're in the vortex of a little place called the Lifestylist Podcast, and you're sitting here with perhaps the luckiest man in the world, myself, your host, Luke Storey. What makes me so lucky? The fact that I get to sit down with the most fascinating people in the world and dive deep into their souls, their minds, and their knowledge bases, and then share that information with you. And today's episode is no exception because our guest is Light Watkins, one of the world's foremost experts on Vedic meditation, which is something I've been practicing for a number of years. But before we jump into that party, I want to tell you about next week's episode with our lovely guest, Miss Jasmine Hemsley from the UK. She's got a fantastic accent. She's brilliant. She's beautiful. She's an amazing woman. And the episode is called East by West, Ayurveda meets Paleo, Conscious Cuisine. Really cool stuff. So she's got a new cookbook out, and we talk all about the Ayurvedic approach to eating while adding animal products into that system. Very interesting stuff. So you want to make sure and catch next Tuesday's show. And an easy way to do that is just by subscribing to the podcast. It's kind of a no-brainer. So open your podcast app right now, click subscribe, and you're done. Next up is my event at Bulletproof Labs in Santa Monica, California at 6:30 p.m. on June 14th. That event is free. That's right. Holla, can I get a witness? FREE free, but you must RSVP. And to do so, you can easily find that information at lukestorey.com/events. Next up, I want to let you know about my website store. A lot of people don't know that I actually have a place where I link out to all of my favorite health products, gadgets, supplement, everything in the world that I've discovered that I think works and is valid is linked on lukestorey.com/store. It's a really great resource for you. So you don't have to email me or DM me on Instagram being like, hey, what's the best water filter? Yo, I got you, boo. It's all at lukestorey.com/store. If it's on there and I link to it, I don't sell anything, by the way. I just link out to the raddest stuff and give you discounts on it and support the brands that I love. If I have it on the site, then just by default, that's the best thing I found in that class. So if it's like B12 you're looking for, I have the best, what I believe is the best source for B12 on my site. Anything that I discover in the world that gets outdated or I find something better, I take it off my site and I put the new thing on. Sorry, brands that aren't up to speed, but I'm always looking for the most chronic stuff out there. Okay, on to this show. Our guest, as I said, is Light Watkins. Who is this guy? Well, Light's been practicing and teaching meditation for almost 20 years. His specialty is showing regular people how to turn meditation from a chore into a delight, which is frankly what it's become for me. He just released his second book, Bliss More, How to Succeed in Meditation Without Really Trying. I love that title. It's a great book. I have a copy of it right in my dining room as we speak. He produces The Shine, a global pop-up inspirational variety show that highlights regular people who are using their talents and gifts to help people in meaningful ways. Those events are amazing too, by the way. If you have a chance to get to one, I've been to them and they're really fun. And hopefully maybe, you know what, Light, if you listen back to this dude, you know what? Maybe I could speak at the Shine sometime. That's weird. I've never plugged myself to a guest in their intro, but whatever. It's my show. I can do what I want. But word up, Light. Let's do this. Next, every morning, Light also sends out a daily dose of inspiration email to counterbalance some of the negativity we each face in our lives. So you definitely want to sign up for his newsletter as well. Here's what we talk about in bulleted format during this conversation: how to succeed in meditation without really trying, according to his book, changing the conversation around meditation and removing some of the unnecessary mystique, why Light's book is accessible to the everyman or every woman and experienced practitioners alike, reframing writing as a practice of spirituality, dealing with criticism and how to laugh at negative reviews on Yelp. Thank God I don't have a Yelp. I don't think my ego could handle that, but he explains how to get over it. How Light, who's a young man from Alabama, first got into meditation in the 90s. Light's first meditation orgasm. Yep, that's right. That's possible. And then we talk about Tom Knowles, a Maharishi, an eminent master teacher of Vedic meditation. Why meditation is only effective when it's a daily practice. Sorry, you can't be a weekend warrior with this stuff, you guys. You got to jump in every damn day. He's going to teach you how. Becoming a good teacher and how that is the best way to learn. Learning how to listen to your intuitive voice, your energetic economy, stress relief and how it relates to meditation, and calming the fight or flight reaction. And then lastly, why Light keeps his services accessible and affordable to everyone. And then my last question, actually, there was one more. I asked him how he prays, and he had a really profound answer to that question. So it is with great joy, and gratitude, and general appreciation and love that I deliver Mr. Light Watkins to you.
What I find in meditation is that it gives you a greater chance of just appreciating more of that kind of beauty, the unsuspecting beauty.
So here we are with Light Watkins. We finally made it, dude. Welcome.
We did. We're here after what, like a couple of years?
It's been a couple of years. We've been toying with this idea.
Yeah.
And we finally nailed it down.
I got the Earth Runners, so I'm on that program.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, of course.
Sick, dude.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about, as I was jotting down some notes for stuff for us to talk about, I was like, where did I first meet Light?
We met at Neil Strauss's.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, dude, it's a funny story for those listening. We met at our mutual friend, Neil Strauss, who's an author and a former guest on the show, and someone that was really instrumental in me.
So you got him on the show?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was, you were saying you wanted to get him.
We went to his house and did a whole recording. It was epic. It's a long story. But anyway, those of you listening, Light and I first met under really interesting circumstances because Neil is a a guy who's really into kind of expanding and stretching himself and his boundaries, and he's just really into like personal development and exploration. So Light and I met. We're invited with a small group of people to his house to do an urban escape and evasion course, which entailed us learning how to get out of zip tie handcuffs, how to pick handcuffs,
Pick locks. Experience what it's like to be tasered.
I got tasered, bro. Did you do it?
I didn't do it. No, I did. Sorry, I did do it.
I didn't do the waterboarding, though.
I didn't do the waterboarding. No.
You know what? I would have, but it was kind of cold out.
It was cold and there was a big queue, and I just was like, I'm okay if I don't do that.
So that's where we met, and we didn't get a chance to really hang out that much because we were getting tasered at the time.
And locked in the trunks.
Oh, yeah, and breaking out of the car trunk.
Breaking out of trunks, yeah.
Yeah, that was dope. That was a fun day. But I think Neil introduced us like, oh, this is Light, and he's a meditation teacher. And I asked you, I was like, oh, what meditation are you into? And you said, oh, I teach Vedic meditation. I thought, oh, dude, we got to talk.
Yeah.
And so here we are finally talking. So I want to jump off with you talking about your new book.
Yes.
That's coming out, Bliss More, The Inner Gym.
Yes.
And I've given it my usual, I always have to be honest with the guests because when I get a PDF version, because I have the advanced like PDF.
Did they not send you the hard copy?
No.
Oh, wow. Okay. They were supposed to send you that.
So
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's fine. So what I do is I speed read them and get the gist, and I get some talking points and things like that, which I did for you. But I really like the title, The Inner Gym. So give us a synopsis of what your book's
So The
all
Inner
about.
Gym is my first book. Bliss More, How to Succeed in Meditation Without Really Trying is the new book.
Oh, okay. All right.
But that's a cool mashup.
That's me trying to read off the computer.
Bliss
Okay.
More, The Inner Gym.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of not that far from what it is, but yeah, it's a book that literally is about how to succeed in meditation without really trying. So you practice Vedic meditation. You've been doing it for, I think you said 6 years or so. And if you've tried other styles of meditation, you probably have noticed that what you practice now is a lot more effortless than what most people experience, especially with sort of do-it-yourself meditation techniques. And I wanted to take those principles and those mechanics of effortless meditation, and I wanted to just get that more in the conversation, because I think the people with the biggest bullhorns right now in the meditation world are talking about something very different when it comes to meditation. And most of it is about, having a very specific and almost kind of rigid physical and mental approach to the practice, which is, there's a time and place for that. It's fine. But for the newbie, for the amateur meditator who sincerely just wants to have a daily practice, I think it could be a bit intimidating. And ultimately, it's, in my experience, it's not necessary. If you want to have that experience of, sitting with the legs crossed on the floor for an hour, that's fine. But it's not necessary to achieve the best or the most efficient results for meditation. And so I just wanted to change that conversation away from, hey, you have to look a certain way in order to meditate, into empowering the everyman with the principles that they need to get the most from the practice without exerting all this effort. And the main point, the main sort of principle is just reframing the relationship with the mind. Even people who practice Vedic meditation have this kind of antagonistic relationship with their mind. And you have to keep reminding them as a teacher, the mind is not the enemy. The mind is not the obstacle. The mind is actually your ally. The mind is noble. And after hearing that over and over and over, eventually people get it a little bit, and then they become a teacher, and then they really get it. But, there's not a lot written about that in the meditation world. And so I wanted to put that in a book form so that idea can hopefully scale a little bit wider than our little Vedic meditation living room circles.
Yeah, well, you did a great job of doing that because it's laid out in a really simple way that's accessible. It's not like a really woo-woo, far out Eastern mysticism approach where, there's some spiritual books, dude, I've had for years, And I mean, it's great because I can dig my teeth into them, and they take some time and they take on different meaning over the course of time. But I think if you handed some of those to a person that isn't really, really devotional, or that hasn't done a lot of studying, they just be like, what is this? It's gibberish. Because that's how they were to me at first.
Right.
And what's cool about your book is I think like someone at a more advanced level could relate to it and be like, oh, cool, that's a cool way to approach it, and reframe a couple of the ideas around it. As you said, even someone like me that's been practicing for a while. But also it's super accessible for your average Joe or Jane, So it's a great service that you're doing, and that's why I wanted to make sure to bring it up. Sometimes people have a book coming out, or it's just come out, and I kind of just skip over because I'm like, that's a given. People can just we'll link to it at the end, but
right.
I wanted to really like find out what your intention was. And
my inspiration was I heard you mention Ram Dass in your interview with Jeff, my colleague, and he was actually, his book Be Here Now, and specifically the beginning of it, where he's just telling stories of how he met his guru. That book and Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek were some of the inspirations for. I wanted to basically make this book, Bliss More, the meditation version of the 4-Hour Workweek. So take something that people spend a lot of time and energy trying to do, and just get them to take the active ingredients or the principles and work them so that they can get the most out of spending all this time. I'm personally satisfied with the job that I did. I feel like I did the best I can do it. And I don't know how much you've written yourself, but as anyone who writes a lot knows, writing is really not about just blabbering on about as much as you know. It's actually about economy and scaling back and taking things out and just leaving in the essence so that people get the point.
You just described me like doing 10 edits on every important email I send out.
Yeah.
Dude, last night I sent someone an email. I basically, here's the gist. Okay, I'm going to this event. I've interviewed a lot of the speakers. It's called the Longevity Now Conference. Great health event coming up. And I've also interviewed a lot of the vendors. So I just had a simple idea. I was like, oh, sick. I should make up some podcasts, little flyers, some postcards, and feature each one of the speakers of the vendors. And then the vendors can hand them out to their customers in their bags or whatever like that. So I pitched it to them, and they're like, what are you talking about? Just explain it. And so I sent like this 4-page opus, like explaining the whole thing in great detail. And after I was done, I'm like, I could have just said like, I just want to give a few flyers to a few people. Like, it's not that big of a deal,
Right.
So you're right. And even I really struggle with that in writing, and just writing I'll be writing the intro for this very show. And I sit in that chair right there, and it's every like Sunday night or Monday night right before it comes out. And I'm like, oh God, I dread sitting down to write that, because it's supposed to be a short little snippet that just goes in the iTunes app and tells you what it's about to, hopefully entice people to listen. And it ends up being like 6 paragraphs.
Right.
It's really hard. You're right.
You got to whittle it down to that short.
So when
snippet.
you're writing your blog posts and stuff, you're very prolific in your writing. It seems like most of your content, if you're not a guest on a show or something, is written form, and you've now got a couple books.
Yeah.
How do you edit yourself as you go? Or do you just like unload the whole thing and then go back and sort of
that's
do
what
surgery?
I do. I just exactly. I just write whatever I'm thinking. I mean, I do my best to kind of edit as I go along, because the stuff that I send out every day for my daily dose of inspiration is, I try to keep it, I try to respect people's time and try to keep it at a length that someone could digest and read within about a minute or two. And it's been a fun exercise. I mean, again, referring back to Jeff, he was one of my inspirations for doing that. He's been doing his thing for his daily email for like, and his things are like, he has these epic
God.
posts.
I forgot to ask him about that, but I still get those. And I'm like, how does he keep this going? I thought he was going to do it for like a year and be like, okay, I did it.
That's
and
right.
He just keeps going.
Well, that's the thing. You start doing it, and I'm experiencing the same thing. It's like you can't envision a time where you would stop doing it, because the act of doing it generates the inspiration to do it.
Do you batch them where you'll take a Sunday and just crank them out? You literally write them every day?
single day. It's
oh
a
my
practice.
God, dude. Doesn't that stress you out? Just having a podcast every Tuesday. At first it was cute. I was like, oh, I have a podcast. I'm a podcast. And then like after a year, I was like, oh my God, I literally have to do this every week.
I've got to find some more guests.
And the production process. So how do you find the discipline or inspiration, and does it ever become laborious?
That was the point. It was a very intentional reason for starting it is I wanted to have to force myself to sit down and write every single day, because that's what all the writers say, is that if you want to be a writer, you have to write. And I know me, and I know, left up to my own devices, I would just batch things or wait till the last minute to write things. And what I saw from writing my first book which was a self-published book, was that I would write, and then I would take 3 months off, and then I would write, and then I would take another month off, then I would write a draft, and then I would take another 6 months off. It took me 3.5 years to finish that book. Whereas writing around the clock, which is what I did for my second book, was a lot more efficient. And I don't fancy myself as a really great writer, so I knew I needed a lot of practice. And just like if I was going to do an Ironman or something, you need to train every single day leading up to that event. And I wanted my writing to be my training. So, and I also wanted it to be for public consumption, so that I had to be very mindful of what I was writing. You couldn't just put anything out there. You have to edit. And so I've learned through the process of sending things out and getting feedback, I've learned how to better edit myself. And I'm talking about substantive edits, not necessarily grammar. I still make grammatical mistakes here and there, but just as far as the concept. And what I do now is, I've written a year of original content. Now I go back and I kind of cherry pick the greatest hits from the first year, and I'll republish them, but I'll go back and re-edit the whole thing. So sometimes those can take as long as writing an original piece. I can see how much better my editing has gotten over the year when I go back and work on a piece that I wrote a year ago. And I can really spot, like, oh, this is fat, that's fat, this is not necessary, cut that. And you can get it down to just its essence. And maybe the same thing will happen next year if I decide to republish another thing that I wrote, a year ago. I can go in and chop it a little bit more. So, and then there's also this kind of back of the mind intention that maybe one day I'll publish these. So it's like I'm just getting to sort of carve the beauty out of the stone, and it takes time, and it's kind of nice because I tend to get a little bit, I need variety in my life. I always have. And while it is writing something every day, it's kind of a different thing. Like, so Jeff kind of sticks to the Vedic thought of the day, which is, I'm more of an inspirational thing, which could be anything. It could be a story, it could be a poem, it could be a music, it could be an anecdote, it could be a conversation that we have, it could be something I found online, it could be a video that I transcribe into written form or something like that. And it just kind of gives me a lot more to play with, and just whatever I personally find inspiring. So
it's interesting to contextualize writing as something that you practice and get better at. I've never actually thought about it. And of course, if you had to classify what writing is, it's artistic expression. But I've never made the correlation to actually practice it to get better. Like, I got a guitar over there, and if I want to get better at guitar, I got to sit there and practice. And I've been doing that for years and years. And even with meditation, actually, too, which I want to dive deeper into in terms of framing that as a practice. But I never thought about that with writing. Now that you say that, having written, 130 or so intros now at this point to the show, which, as I said, are supposed to be a paragraph and end up being 5 or 6 at times, I have gotten better at it, I think, and just getting the point across, and people seem to resonate with those little snippets of information, the summaries. Mm-hmm. But there are often times when I sit down, like I said, I'm just like, I got nothing. Does that ever happen to you? Like,
oh God, every
day.
day.
You write the thing, and you're just like, hello, inspiration. Where are you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a daily. That's daily for me. Like right now, I have no idea. Actually, I do know what I'm going to write tomorrow because I've already written it. But usually, when I'm just walking around, unless something hits me, and I recognize it, I'm really good now at sort of tuning in to that frequency, so I can recognize if I see something or hear something or experience something that I think would be good for my daily email. I'll kind of lock in, or I'll take a note or something like that, and then I'll go back. But that doesn't really mean it's going to go out. It means I'm going to write it down. I'll start writing things down, and in the process of writing it down, I'll know that it's not ripe yet. Mm-hmm. And what makes it ripe really is, I'm really good at coming up with the beginning, like premise, but the key is ending on some sort of zinger, something to leave people with.
That's true. I've noticed that.
And if you don't have a zinger, then it's not complete. And oftentimes I'll just kind of craft 2 or 3, I'll just keep writing, keep going. There's many ideas that come. And then I'll think I have the ending, but it won't be complete, it won't feel right. And so I'll just go to sleep. And I send it out at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'll
Manually?
No,
or
no,
you
no.
time it?
I time
Oh,
it,
okay.
but I
Like,
time
damn,
it.
dude, you're hardcore.
But I will set an alarm for 5:30, and I'll wake up and I'll just read it and sit with it again for about 20 minutes, and then
Oh
I'll
my
end up
God.
manually sending it out. And I do
Damn,
that probably
bro.
50% of the time.
Holy crap.
I just care about it that much that I just want to make sure it's the best that it can be before it goes out.
That's amazing. That's like some kung fu master shit right there. That's discipline, bro.
I feel like, I have thousands of people reading these things,
Right.
and at this point, and so I take them very seriously, and I want each one to be something that can stand on its own. If this is the last thing I ever wrote, then this is going to be something that I would want to go back and read again, or someone else will read again, and it'll be impactful. So
How have you worked through, or have you had to work through the inner critic where you're doing something like writing or something creative, and that voice of the shadowy ego is back there going, you suck, people are going to hate this, you sound dumb, your vocabulary is weak. I'm just telling you what what mine does.
yeah.
Do you have demons and ghosts like that still that tell you that you're not good enough and that what you're doing isn't valid? And if so, how do you cope with that?
What's interesting is I do, obviously, I think everybody does. 2 things. Number one, I used to be a fashion model for 7 years. You were a model too. I think we talked about that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, for a couple minutes.
So the thing with modeling, which can on the surface, no pun intended, sound like a very superficial activity, you experience a lot of rejection. At least I did. And it's oftentimes for very superficial reasons. And I noticed that over the years, I did it for 7 years, it calloused me to rejection.
I can see that would be the case. I have actor friends like that too. One in particular, my friend David Keller, or I call him Kleinfeld because he looks like the character played by Sean Penn in Carlito's Way, the lawyer. Kleinfeld, shout out to you, buddy. He'll probably listen to this at some point. But dude, he goes on auditions all the time and just gets shot down and just dissed
And you
over
just
and
have
over
to keep
again.
getting back up.
Yeah, and he's just
again
like,
and
oh,
again
it's no
and
big
again.
deal. I just go on another one. I'm like,
Yeah.
dude, how do you do that?
Yeah. So it teaches you to become more process oriented as opposed to outcome oriented. And that's one thing. And so it turns out that ended up being a very positive outcome from that era of my life, which I really enjoyed. I don't have anything negative to say about modeling. But number 2, when you send these things out, these emails out to thousands of people, you get the whole spectrum of responses. So you get, people who are saying, oh my God, this is just what I needed to hear today. And you get other people saying, I'm offended. I can't believe you wrote this.
Oh, dude. Okay. We're going to go there. We're
and
going to go
everything
there.
in between. So
I just got excited.
So what you start to see is that it's not really, it's really, you don't have any control over how people are perceiving these things. And I gotten to the point now where I can kind of tell, okay, this one is going to appeal to the sort of higher minded, sort of spiritual crew. This one is going to appeal to kind of the everyman crew. Everyone's going to get this, but it's going to be a little even too simple for those people. And so I kind of, in my mind, as best as possible, I try not to edit what's coming through me because I realize I'm not actually the author of these emails. I'm just a channel. And somebody needs to hear this. And so I think when I take myself out of the equation, then it's easier to not personalize the responses that come back and the criticism.
Right, because you're like, I didn't even write this.
Right, I didn't even write this.
Why should I trip?
Exactly.
It's like conversations with God.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. And my job was just to transcribe what was coming through, wake up in the morning, make sure that I got all my little ego stuff out of there, and then send it out. And yeah, I mean, look, it makes me feel alive every morning at 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
I feel like it's this little, I wonder what how the people are going to react, what the spectrum is going to be today.
Do you get trolled and get people being sort of mean or offensive in response to the work that you put out?
Not really. I mean, the people that, sometimes, somebody will unsubscribe and the system will screw up and keep them on or something like that. And then I've gotten some emails like that once or twice, but for the most part, not really. It's,
you're fortunate.
Somebody didn't meditate that morning or something. And
that'll do it. Yeah, I'm
back.
struggling with that a little bit here and there.
With your podcast?
Yeah, like
I don't understand that. Why don't people just not look at your podcast?
Well, in the actual reality, like if I take my warped perception out of it, 99.999999% of the people that take the time to give feedback about the show say, "Don't change a thing. It's perfect. This is amazing. Your help." I mean, dude, you see the direct messages I get, like their health, their relationships. People are really benefiting from listening to people like you. And I acknowledge that, and that's nice. But then there'll be one that's like usually the thing I get, and now I'm getting super self-conscious about it, is I get the same criticism all the time. Well, I've gotten a couple that like I'm not politically correct and I offend people, and that I don't even pay attention because it's like I know where my heart is. I got a good heart, dude. I would never hurt anyone intentionally, and I talk the way I talk. I have an irreverent way of communicating. So whatever, listen to another podcast. You know, I mean, I consider it if I'm being offensive, but most time I'm like, no, you're just like too sensitive. You got to put on your big person pants and like grow up, you know?
Yeah.
But outside of that, the criticism is always like, you talk too much, let the guest talk. And I'm like, and then I listen back to my shows because I'm always trying to improve. And I think a lot of the time they're right. Not because I'm trying to hog the show. I just get pumped. Like right now, I'm like, I'll get tripped out. Like, should he be talking more? Am I going on too long? Like, I'm going to lose listeners. And it's like, I really can't think that way because then I'll lose the essence of what I'm doing. So I take it with a grain of salt and I do fine tune and I really try not to interrupt my guests. You know, like right now I'm aware when you speak, I'm like, all right, shut up, Luke, shut up, wait your turn. But the style of my podcast is conversational.
Right. And I think that's your style. That's what, and somebody once said, you keep doing you until you is what they want, you know?
Right.
That's all you can do is you.
Well, here's the thing I think people don't realize is like, this is not an interview. I'm getting to know you as a person. Like we're becoming friends. I think sometimes that criticism, they're not in the room with us, so they don't realize. To me, we're not even producing a podcast right now. I really want to learn from you.
Yeah, they're comparing you to Ira Glass or whatever the hell else they're listening to, and it's just like it's not the same thing.
So it's not like, oh, I ask a question, then you give an answer. To me, that would be so dry and boring. I really am like building rapport and hopefully future relationships where we could collaborate or become friends or do stuff. You know, so part of that building rapport and getting to know someone is you both sort of share your perspective. And
that's right.
So I'm working on finding a balance where I don't step on the guest. But point being is that criticism has been hard for me because I notice I feel this defensiveness up in me when I see one of those comments. I'm like, oh, really, bitch? You know, like I get heated and I'm like, oh my God, stop, dude. It's just.
I mean, I've gotten a couple of negative comments on like Amazon for my books and stuff. And I spend like 5 minutes just kind of like, you know, they missed the point or whatever. That's usually what the comment is. They missed the point in some way. But, you know, I did this thing one time, and this is actually one of my daily doses. I wrote about this. After getting my first few negative comments, I went and I looked up the Amazon page and reviews for all the books that I just love. I went to Ram Dass's Be Here Now. I went to The Alchemist. I went to Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now. So many elaborate 1-star reviews. People just took their time. This is trash. This is the worst thing ever written in life. And this like point by point by point. It's like, it's amazing that people spend their precious time writing a 1-star review for a book.
You know what one of my favorite comedic pastimes is, and I'll do this just because I go on Yelp to find something. Like, you know, I go to New York and I want to go to a spa or whatever, you know, and then I love reading the negative reviews on Yelp.
Like Yelp reviews are fantastic.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and people really take their time and craft like these very extensive, like in-depth, super, you know, just mean, but so thoughtfully mean reviews. I'm kind of like, God, you could have just spent that hour and a half crafting that seething, you know, critique at just finding a new manicure spot or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
But they're actually like pretty funny. I think they're great writers. I'm like, man, if you could channel that into something positive, like you could work in, you know, writing stand-up or
I actually think the place for that is Yelp because you're basically dealing with service.
I mean, that's what it's
operators,
for, right?
Yeah. Okay, and I think service operators, to keep them honest, they should be reviewed. But like a book, that's like a 2-month long investment of your time. Like just stop reading the book if you're not into it,
Right.
It's no one's forcing you to finish reading that or watching that movie. Just stop. I mean, why get on and start writing and critiquing something that took somebody 2 years to put together? It's a work of art. It's like going to the museum and leaving the Yelp reviews about the art on the walls, It's
Right.
like that was this person's experience expressed as this piece of art. So if you don't like it, fine. Just look somewhere, look at another piece of
Right.
art,
Do you, though, I mean, you seem like a thoughtful guy. You said you take a minute. Do you consider the degree of validity in someone's critique of,
there's something
the
there.
stuff you're putting out?
Absolutely. I think that people who are honest with themselves like criticism. They like feedback that is constructive. I like to put myself in that category as someone who's honest. I'll even ask my friends, is there anything that you see about me that I'm overlooking that you think I can, have the blind spots that you see that are obvious so I can help to try to improve those areas? I'll ask my really close friend. I don't ask like regular, surface friends.
Yeah,
that
don't
kind
put
of
an
question.
Instagram post out. Hey,
No,
is anything bugging you guys? You want to bitch about?
No. But my really close friends, I've definitely been known to ask that question before because we all have blind spots, and I want to know what those are. Whether I do something about it or not is a different issue, but I want to at least know what they are.
Do you have spiritual advisors or coaches that give you, or a therapist or anything that give you the real deep reality checks on an ongoing basis?
It's funny that you ask that because I have my first. I've been to couples therapy before, but I have my first therapy appointment on next week. I've decided to, I've got this insurance and I'm not ever using it for anything. So why not have someone to talk to? Because I think as someone who is seen as a air quotes spiritual leader, it is challenging to find people to confide in about things and I think it could be helpful to just have people to talk to, people who are paid to listen and to offer objective advice.
I agree. I just actually went on the Blue Shield website and looked up all the approved therapists, and I picked the one I really wanted.
Have you never been to therapy?
No, I have, dude.
Okay.
I've done a lot of work. Oh my God, I was in therapy when I was 14 years old. Yeah.
Okay.
I've been really screwed up. I've required a lot of help. But I haven't found one in LA that I've gone to on a consistent basis. It's sort of been in crisis remediation. You know what I mean? Like some heavy stuff is going down for a period.
Not preventative. It's been like
I'm like, oh my
therapy.
God, my head's on fire, But I've done this thing in Nashville called On-Site, which is this really intensive, week-long experiential thing. I did something called the Hoffman process last year up north.
I heard about that. It was great.
Yeah, actually my show that comes out next Tuesday is with one of the facilitators there. His name's Tim Lawrence. Yeah, it was amazing. So yeah, I've done a lot of that stuff, but I really want to find someone regular in LA because the same reason. It's like a lot of the people that I'm around, like, my little crew, my wolf pack, are younger guys, and I'm sort of like the mentor role in a lot of those relationships for whatever reason. I have a few peers that are, on the level where someone I could be like, hey, do you see anything? And maybe they're further down the road in certain areas of development and stuff. But other than Jeff Kober, who's kind of my main go-to, I don't have a lot of people that I can really bounce stuff by that are going to give me, that kind of wisdom that I can really trust and take to the bank. And so there are things that come up now and I'm like, God, I need someone to talk to that understands this from a psychological point of view. Because I can call Jeff and he gives me the spiritual answer, which is like, oh, dude, you're caught up in the mind. You're caught up in the ego. Don't pay attention to the thoughts. Don't pay attention to the feelings. Just allow them to be there. And it's the whole Eckhart Tolle, David Hawkins kind of
pain body.
Yeah, all that stuff. The non-duality, like I get it, but sometimes it's beyond that. There's also psychological issues and trauma to work out too, and past patterns and things that are somewhat outside of the realm of just mindfulness and meditated away. I mean, I've had to really dig in and work on some serious issues, childhood stuff. So I think it's immensely valuable. So you're looking. I'll be curious to see. You got to let me know if you find a good one.
I have someone. I'll
you did?
I'll let you know how it goes.
Do you have Blue Shield?
I have is Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah,
but this is no endorsement for them.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying if they're in the same
about to
network.
drop them. Yeah. I have some crazy thing, man, where I have like a $8,000 deductible and
Right.
They barely cover anything. So I'm in the market for new insurance.
Right. Okay. Noted.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so much to talk about. Let's jump back into the meditation, because I always think it's funny when I announce stuff on Instagram, like, here's what we're going to be talking about. I know I'm like lying because I actually never know what we're going to talk about, even though I have my notes, because I just follow the breadcrumbs of spontaneity. But I do want to talk about meditation because that's a question that I get a lot from people. I have a form on my site. Hey, what do you want to hear more of? And meditation and mindfulness and the spiritual piece is something people are really interested in. So how did you first get into the practice of sitting down and meditating?
I started doing yoga in the 90s in New York. I started at Equinox Gym. I was working out. I had no interest in it. I didn't know anything about it. I'm from Alabama, so I didn't have like roots in Eastern philosophy. I was in the church.
Yeah, not a lot of ashrams in Alabama.
I just noticed that these really attractive women were going into this room with these mats and they're barefoot. And I was like, one night I'm doing shoulder presses or something, and my curiosity got the best of me, and I ended up in that yoga class. And that was my first experience in yoga. And it was really bad because I wasn't flexible, and the teacher gave me a lot of attention because I was the only guy in the class. But I went back, and then I went back 3 or 4 more times, and I started really enjoying the practice for what it was. And this is back when being a yoga teacher was something that was really unique. And a lot of these yoga teachers, especially in the gym scene, were from like serious traditions. And we used to, there was no music played in the yoga classes, and there was chanting and all of this kind of thing. So,
you ever been over to Tantras?
I have, yeah, I've done Tantras.
Like Steve Ross's class, where they play like Jay-Z and stuff,
and
like
all that,
cranky music, and it's a good flow, but the music
it's gotten to the point now where you tell someone you're a yoga teacher, they go, what playlist do you...
Yeah, it's trippy. It's trippy. Anyway, go on.
So, I started joining some of my teachers for these kind of off hours meditation experiences. And, it was very sort of classical, sitting down in front of the altar, on the floor, legs crossed. And
were you going to like Jiva Mukti or one of those old school spots?
No. I was just doing the Equinox yoga, and then I was doing these kind of solo meditation things, like with there'd be 3 people sitting around in a living room meditating.
Okay.
And then I started going to the Riverside Church on the Upper West Side and meditating at this little circle every Tuesday night. It was my entree into the practice, and it was very nebulous in terms of, is there anything happening? I didn't know what meditation was. I didn't know what was supposed to happen. I tell you, I'm going to get very open right now and transparent, but the first time I ever had sex, I was 18 or something like that. I didn't know what was supposed to happen at the end. I didn't know that there was, I didn't know. I was like, how does this...
You didn't grow up on porn?
No, I didn't.
Wow. You're from Alabama. You went to church and
70s and 80s. Exactly. Yeah. There was no pornography around. So I didn't know. I never had that talk where someone said how sex was supposed to finish.
Isn't that crazy how our parents had no clue how to educate us on that?
Yeah. And so the first couple years, literally, I would have sex a handful of times. I didn't know what was supposed to happen. And then finally one time it happened, and I go, oh, this is what sex is about. Or at least as a teenager, this is what sex is about. And so meditation was kind of the same thing. I'd be sitting there like, is this it? Just me sitting here with my eyes closed, staring at my eyelids. That's it, And it wasn't until about 3 years later, I met my meditation teacher, who's, Jeff and I have the same teacher. That's where I had my first orgasm. Meditation version of the orgasm. I went into that deep, blissful nirvana samadhi place, and I was like, this is it. This is what meditation is supposed to be about. And I couldn't get enough of it. Just like when I first started.
Yeah. There is a correlation there, though.
I'm just
it's no accident your book is called Bliss, because there definitely is a similar territory there to be discovered.
Absolutely, yeah.
So Tom Knowles was your guy.
Yeah.
So for anyone listening, he's kind of the Mac daddy. He's the OG of the
Vedic
scene.
Meditation, yeah.
Like anyone that learned from him, we're like, he learned from Tom Knowles. It's like the thing, And then his son Charlie, of course, as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think some of the biggest misconceptions people have about meditation are. You mentioned some of the ones that you had earlier, and I
Yeah.
know a lot of them because I get a lot of feedback from listeners and say, "Oh, I tried meditation. It doesn't work. I don't like it. It doesn't, they don't get it." What do you think the blocks are for most people?
I think that most people are approaching meditation with an expectation in mind, and that can be a block. Just going into it looking for something to happen. The thing happens when you're not looking for it to happen, and I think that they end up fighting their minds incredibly, and it that can also block the thing from happening. And people are sitting in ways that aren't very comfortable, and that can also block the thing from happening.
For real, dude.
And
And we're going to talk about that. Yeah.
and they're trying to focus their way to bliss, which also blocks it from happening. So pretty much everything you think you should do in meditation blocks it from happening. And that's what I learned from Tom is you want to go in the opposite direction. You want to sit comfortably. You don't want to fight your mind. You don't want to focus on anything. It's the anti-focus approach. You don't need to meditate for long stretches of time. Just 15, 20 minutes is enough to achieve very deep states of rest. And you want to do it with some level of frequency. You can't just do it once every week because that's where your meditation group meets. You have to do it every day. And by doing it every day, it's just like the writing, just like learning guitar, anything else, you're going to get more effortless at it. And it's being effortless that yields the experience that everybody wants to have, which is the
And
best.
that right there, that dichotomy, I think is what throws a lot of people, especially people that are logically motivated.
Mhm.
Like, okay, tell me the steps to do, and then I'm going to do it. It's very kind of nebulous and ambiguous, and it doesn't make sense logically to say, okay, so to get really good at meditating, you have to not try really hard. It's like the least amount of effort to keep that mantra going is going to be the most effective. When type A personalities, I have no problem sitting on meditating. I could do it for hours. Like I'm down
Mhm.
now at this point, but some people are like, God, it's so boring. Like I'm going to get good at this. I'm going to try. I'm going to
Mm.
force myself to stop thinking.
Yeah.
Is that not a big misconception that like
Yeah,
meditation
we
means
take
that
our same indoctrination that we apply to everything else. I have to work hard in order to be successful. I have to remember everything. I have to maintain all of my awareness. I have to try to control the experience. And that's how we've been trained since we were little that is this formula for success. And if we don't approach meditation in those same ways, we're not going to be successful at it. That's our conditioning. And so it's just natural that it's going to happen. So I tell people, when you start off meditating, the reason why it's hard is not because the meditation is hard. It's because you're breaking down the old indoctrination of trying to control the experience. And that's what makes it feel hard. But the meditation itself is actually very easy when you have enough experiences with it and you get beyond your tendencies to control the experience, and then you see, this is actually the easiest thing I'll do all day, meditating. The hardest part is facilitating the time to do it, scheduling it.
How did you learn how to become a teacher? Did you have to go through a rigorous training and stuff?
I did, but you can't teach someone to be a teacher. Being able to teach people is sort of it's a talent, and it can be cultivated. If you have it, it can be cultivated. Because not everybody who trains to be a teacher becomes an effective teacher. And I was teaching yoga at the time. And just before that, before I started teaching yoga, I kind of had this instinct that I would be good at teaching yoga. And it turned out I was good at teaching yoga.
Did you eventually get flexible after being a gym guy?
Well, look, I went from my if I was bending over, my fingertips would be about a foot from the floor. And I got to the point where my fingertips would probably be right at my toes. So yes, I did get a little bit flexible.
I ask because it seems like when people follow a yoga teacher, like the teacher's prowess is often defined by the intricate pretzel shapes. That they're able to
I
get
wasn't that
themselves
teacher.
into.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
and that ended up working out in my benefit because I was so stiff and I was insecure about demonstrating poses in class because I knew I wasn't able to do a lot of the poses that a lot of the other contortionist yoga teachers could do. It forced me to have to be able to explain the poses instead of demonstrating them. I had to talk the yoga yogis through the pose. And so I had to use economy and come up with very simple language and relatable and accessible analogies so that people can get what I'm saying very quickly and easily.
Did you ever feel fraudulent because you're like, hey, okay, so this is how you do crow or whatever, but I can't actually do it myself?
Yeah, I felt like a dentist who was missing his two front teeth and didn't want to smile.
That's funny. I think that's why I like Kundalini yoga. And eventually, one of these days, I'm going to take the teacher training, not necessarily to become a teacher, but just kind of deepen my practice. But I love that because there's no like holds or any, like stretches or positions or anything weird that you hold. It's more kind of active. So there's no one that's like better than anyone else at it.
Yeah.
It's so much of an internal thing.
I mean, looking back, it was a pretty audacious move to become a yoga teacher, knowing that I was so stiff. And my friend, I had an experience one day. I'd been kind of holding on to this secret for years. And my buddy, who was one of my yoga mentors, we were out for a hike one day. And he's one of the guys that I could talk to about almost anything. And I remember asking him a few times, help me with my blind spots. So we were out on a hike one day at Runyon Canyon. And he says to me out of the blue, he says, so how does it feel being one of the most popular yoga teachers in LA who can't touch their toes?
That's great.
And I felt myself kind of tense up a little bit. And I was looking for some sort of spiritual response, but nothing was really coming. And then finally he said, you don't have to beat Michael Jordan in order to coach him to a championship. And then everything just kind of relaxed, and I liked that perspective a lot, and I adopted that perspective for myself. And after that, I didn't really care anymore. So
yeah, that is a good exercise. I think that the goal of losing that perfectionism, and even being concerned.
Well, it was all in my head anyway. A lot of people didn't even care.
Yeah,
I eventually
totally
posted something about it, and then a lot of my old yoga students responded with a lot of encouragement and said, "Oh, we didn't even notice anything." It's all in my head usually, and that's how those things, typically play out. Is we think everybody is noticing these little flaws that we supposedly have, and meanwhile, everybody's so self-absorbed in their own stuff that they're not even noticing anything. And with yoga, especially, a lot of people would think yoga students were the most adaptable people on the planet, but actually, in my experience, it's the opposite. Yoga practitioners are very rigid, and just like anybody else, they like to know what they're getting. They have expectations in mind. If you go off the rails of those expectations, they get very disinterested very quickly. And so, as long as you're giving the people what they want, then they're cool. They don't care if you can touch your toes or not.
What were the logistics of you getting indoctrinated into becoming a Vedic meditation teacher? Did you have to go to India and do all this crazy stuff?
Yeah, I went to India. When I met my teacher, I knew within about 10 seconds that I wanted to become a teacher. So it was an inner calling.
Was that strong, huh?
Yeah, it was the strongest thing. And so I knew that it was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to happen, but I just had the feeling because I'd had that feeling before with other things in my life. And something just kind of inspired me to just spend as much time as I could around him. And I finally got how, you have the guru figure and you have people wanting to be around them and serve without necessarily getting anything tangible back in terms of money or anything like that. You just are wanting to spend time because you understand that you're getting to witness Monet in his studio painting. You're getting to witness this master who's really a master of life and of light. And, just being around that person and seeing them in these kind of day-to-day interactions is giving you so much. And so for those first 3 or 4 years, after I learned with him, I was like a shadow. Whenever he didn't live in Los Angeles, he doesn't live in Los Angeles, but whenever he came to town, which would be every 6 months or so, or 3 months.
Does he live out in Flagstaff or something?
He's in Arizona, yeah. I would be right there and helping him teach other people. And if I ever got the opportunity to go to a lunch or tea or anything like that, it would just be the best day ever. And then eventually he proposed to take myself and some of his other proteges. There were other people who were also hanging around and we were all friendly. And Jeff Kober was one of them, take us over to India to start the training of becoming a teacher. And back in those days, we would start in India for a couple of weeks, and then we'd go to Flagstaff, right down the street from his homestead. We were staying at the Residence Inn in Flagstaff for 3 months, and he'd come over every day and sit down and talk with us for a few hours. And then we have our own little solo program that we would do. So we'd build up to meditating for 13, 14 hours a day.
Oh, word?
Yeah. And we'd share meals. There were 12 of us.
What?
Then he'd come over again and answer questions. And so that went on every day for
So this
for
is
3
pretty
months.
intensive.
Yeah, it's
Like
very
when
intensive.
I first touched on it, you were like, "Yeah, it was no big deal." I'm like, "That's hardcore."
Well, it's not like the Navy SEALs buds or anything like that. We're not
But
holding up logs, but it's all consuming.
there are, and I haven't looked that deep into it, but you have like den meditation and stuff at Wanderlust and Unplugged.
Yeah, it's not like a weekend.
Yeah, like there's like Weekend Warrior, like, oh,
No.
I took this course on Saturday and Sunday. Now I'm a meditation
No, it's
teacher.
all full on.
Yeah,
all in.
Because when I started doing the podcast and stuff, I realized that I love doing public speaking and doing events, and I do a lot of talks about health or spirituality and all sorts of different stuff. But I always feel like I don't have like a thing to do or even a way to bill myself. I don't even know how to call what I talk about a thing or whatever. So I inquired with Jeff Kober, and I was like, hey, I'm doing a lot of events now that I have my podcast and I'm doing speaking, and I think I'd like to teach people how to meditate, and maybe I'd do like a teacher training at Kundalini and like have my little thing, and then I can take people and do retreats or do talks or whatever. So I was thinking maybe I should, become a Vedic teacher. And he was like, slow your roll, dude. He's like, it's not like that. It's a whole,
it's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing, bro. This isn't like a little parlor trick that you add to your talk at Wanderlust. This is a deep thing. Like it would take time and money and real commitment. I was like, yeah, okay, I'm good.
Yeah. People reach out to me all the time. Like, I want to become, I want to become a meditation teacher. I said, have you learned this technique? No, but can you just teach me how to teach?
Right.
I said, well, you have to learn this first and practice it for a couple of years every day, and then we can talk about teaching you to become a teacher.
Right.
Well, is there anything any quicker than that? And it's like, and then at that point you have to start questioning, what's this person's intention or motivation behind doing this? Do you just want to get up in front of people and just be the big, guru or whatever? Or do you really want to help people? Because if you want to help people, how can you answer a question about something if you haven't experienced it for yourself?
I think that's the thing is like I've derived so much benefit out of this practice because I've been practicing meditation for going on 21 years. I just turned 21 years sober a few days ago, and that's when I started meditating because it was life or death. I wasn't meditating to be cool. I was meditating to not do heroin. You know what I'm saying? It was like I didn't have a choice. I had to learn how to meditate. I went through years and years of all these different practices, and they all took me to a certain point. But once I found this, I was like, yeah, I'm good. Like this is the Holy Grail of practices, at least for now, the past few years. So to me, it's like, God, I want to be able to share what I found with people until I realize that it's its own path kind of. So if I'm not going to do that as sort of a soul vocation and that's my thing, then it wasn't, the path for me. And I just have to turn people on to little crumbs here and there that might be useful. So I just send people to Jeff, or I'll send people to you or Emily Fletcher, or different people that teach the meditation that I do. I have a client that lives in upstate New York, and I was like, dude, go see Emily Fletcher, like learn to meditate for real. It's trippy. Every single friend, I think there's 4 of my closest friends, they see me doing my thing, with Jeff and learning the Vedic path, and that I've benefited. And I know I've changed a lot as a result. And I want to talk about some of the changes that are possible from your perspective. But they all I never pushed on anyone. It was really a thing of attraction, not promotion. They're just like, what's that thing you're doing? And they asked me, I say, go to Jeff's intro talk. And now 4 of them do it. And it's dope, dude, because we all hang out.
And it's like, hey, have you meditated
yet?
yet?
We're like, yo, actually, my friend James texted me before you came. He's like, hey, I'm on a lunch break. Can I come over and meditate with you? And I was like, I got to record, bro. And I had just done mine a couple hours prior, But that's how we all roll. We'll pull the car over. We go to the movies. We're a little early. Hey, we got 20 minutes. Let's medi,
Love it. Yeah, that was my experience like 16 years ago. And it's like, you couldn't really be my friend if you weren't meditating at that point. That became a filter for me, If you didn't take it seriously, then we'd just be surface friends.
Right.
But if you want to be really close friends, you had to go through the meditation training.
What are some changes that you've seen in yourself profound changes that you could identify for us that are a direct result to your practice?
Yeah, that's a good question. And people ask me that a lot. And what's interesting is I've never had addictions, or I never felt like a stressed out person. I wasn't coming to meditation to solve anything or to, get through anything specific. I was more inspired by Tom. That was why I learned it, because he was exuding a level of happiness I'd never seen before. And I wanted that. I wanted that happiness.
Yeah.
So for me, meditation has helped to enhance or increase the volume on the, they talk about the still small voice inside. And as it turns out, the still small voice can actually become a loud, annoying voice if you cultivate it. Meaning, we all have the voice of intuition. We're really good at ignoring it if it's not convenient, which most times it's not. Most times the intuitive voice is going to lead us in a direction where we don't know how things are going to turn out.
Yeah, especially when the intuitive voice is going against your instincts and the ego that are like money, sex, power.
Right. That's right.
Shit that feels good, and your intuition's like, no, go toward the light.
Right. But if it's turned up and it's like it's like your friend who's like, look, no, you're not going to do that. You've done that enough times. You know how it turns out. Go in this other direction. Then it's easier to go in the other direction instead of, hey, you should really do this. This is wonderful. Here's a little nudge.
Right.
Da, 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 da.
Dude, that's so interesting because I actually hadn't made the correlation to becoming more tapped in to my own intuition as a result of meditation. I kind of just thought, well, I'm just doing all this stuff and that's just sort of part and parcel to the whole lifestyle.
Yeah, no.
But yeah,
you become more comfortable with uncertainty because that's what the
Yeah.
intuitive voice is leading you towards, uncertainty.
Because like friends will call me a lot. I mean, I counsel a lot of people. It's just, I don't know, it's the role that I have. And someone will say, hey, my partner Lauren, my business partner Lauren called me yesterday and was like, hey, I forgot to tell you, these people pitched me about this partnership, rev share, blah, 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 like business thing. And I just listen. And she's like, what do you think? I go, it's not what I think, it's what I feel. I said, it feels good. Explore.
That's the other thing.
Not to say that I'm right. It's just my intuition is like I'm looking for that 51%.
Right. You can discriminate easier between things that to other people may seem like great ideas, but they're horrible, or things that may seem like mediocre ideas, but they're amazing, and you can feel what the right one for you is in this moment. And it makes it so much easier because you don't have to go back and forth and, do a whole like pros and cons list and all. You feel it. And if you feel it, you say yes to it, and that's it. And you go on to the next thing. So you can just make those decisions so much easier.
So you've used the word economy a couple of times in terms of saving energy, the economy of energy with writing and things like that. So you're talking about now an energetic economy of, rather than using up, literally burning calories from thinking about like pros and cons lists and all of that stuff, and like getting all caught up and burning that energy in your head, of just taking that one subtle feeling of intuition and basing more of your decisions on that.
Absolutely, yeah, or all of them. And a couple things in the West, we have this idea that lots of options gives us lots of freedom, but now we know scientifically it's been proven that when you have a lot of choices, you get paralysis of analysis. And in the East, it's not about having more choices. It's about having a state of consciousness or a state of awareness that gives you the ability to know at any moment what the right choice is for you. So you don't have to waste that time. And so what tends to happen is a lot of people are either going in one of these two directions. They're either able to do less and accomplish more. And this is a direct result of inner work, in cultivating the still small voice into a loud voice, so they can make those choices very fast, accurate, calmly, simultaneously, or they're doing more and accomplishing less. And when you get into that track, now your main priority is feeding the endless cravings of the body. Food, I need more sex, I need more television, I need more rest. And as a result, I don't have time to meditate. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat higher quality foods because I just need to get to the next moment. And a lot of people are experiencing that as their reality. And it's true, they don't have time to meditate because they're doing so much, but there's no economy there. They're not getting anything accomplished, right? So they're working harder and harder, and they're grinding and hustling. But all that sounds like to me is you're not able to discriminate well enough yet. You're not able to prioritize well enough yet. And if you were, you'll be able to, as the metaphor, kill 2 birds, 3 birds, 4 birds with one stone. You're able to do less, accomplish more, and then you all of a sudden get time refunded back to you. So I tell people, and that's another misconception, I don't have time to meditate. What happens when you meditate is time gets refunded back to you because it allows you, from an awareness point of view, to rise above your problems, the labyrinth of your day-to-day problems, and see the connections, see the cause and effect, and be able to make choices that will have a more positive outcome, many steps from today that you wouldn't otherwise make based on a short-term choice to satisfy some craving of your body today.
That's interesting. Yeah. Back to that economy thing. So when you're able to access that intuition and spend less of that energy, then that frees you up to actually find the time to meditate.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's like a self-perpetuating.
You make better choices for yourself.
That's interesting, dude, because when I learned, I had a discipline for a long time where I do some version of meditation and reading and contemplation and prayer, my little morning amalgam that I'd patched together. But when I learned the Vedic technique, what was strange about it for me is I just instantly fell into the discipline. It was no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like it wasn't even the afternoon one for the first couple of years. It was like, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock was like non-negotiable, rarely missed a day. And I thought that was really strange, but I didn't realize that the reason that it was becoming increasingly easy to build it into my schedule, into my lifestyle, where it wasn't like, I don't have time to meditate. I didn't realize that was why.
Yeah.
It's because I'm not wasting time and energy and like burning up psychic fuel to freak out about life so much. So there actually is time to kind of breathe and be able to choose my battles about where I want to spend time and energy.
Well, it's also biochemical too. It's like the part of the brain that gives us the ability to discriminate, which is our prefrontal cortex. It opens up with meditation. It closes down with stress. So when you're under the influence of stress, then you can't see that meditation would be a good thing for you to prioritize. And so you keep getting rerouted to the
right. So
reptilian.
You're like,
I need to just fight and run around.
That's genius. So you're locked into that fight or flight thing, and you're like, the email, the check, the divorce, the kids.
And if you try to sit down and meditate, you start thinking about all that crap, and it's like, I can't do this right now. I got to get to this other stuff.
Right.
So it's and this is not the mind's way or the body's way of punishing that person. It's just, this is how the body functions to try to keep you alive, because for these 40 years you haven't been meditating. You've been training your mind to perceive the environment as a very dangerous jungle-like environment where you're being attacked on a daily basis. That's hardwiring that has happened. That needs to get broken down, and so there's going to be a bit of a rehabilitation, anyone who's ever lived in a house while it's being renovated knows it gets pretty noisy. There's a lot of dirt and dust and commotion, and that's usually the first few months of meditation that people they interpret this as, it's not working. I can't do it. It doesn't work for me. You fucking idiot. Your body and your mind is getting rehabilitated, and then after that it's going to smooth out. That's what's happening. It's not that it's not working. It's working perfectly.
Chances are that if you're listening to this here podcast, that you lead a very health conscious lifestyle. And if you don't, you're going to soon if you keep listening. So do you want to get hooked up and save some money on life insurance because you live that lifestyle? I bet you do. Well, I recently found a company called Health IQ that's a life insurance agency that finds you discounted rates based on your level of health and your lifestyle. Now, they can save their customers up to 33% because of these stats. Check this out. It's staggering. Physically active people have a 56% lower risk of heart disease, 20% lower risk of cancer, and a 58% lower risk of diabetes as compared to people who are inactive and eat crappy food. So now is your chance to actually benefit from all of the hard work you've been putting in to lead a healthy lifestyle. To see if you qualify, go to healthiq.com/lifestylist, and you are going to be really impressed with what these guys are up to. Very innovative system they've created. I'm totally behind it and can't wait for you to check it out. So again, go to healthiq.com/lifestylist. I'm so glad that you brought that up, because when I first learned this from Jeff, I was pretty serene. I mean, I've been working on myself for 15 years or something at that point. It wasn't just like I wandered off the street, some nutcase. I mean, I was pretty spiritually committed and doing a lot of different things. And then I started this practice, and I started getting really angry and irritable again, where I hadn't had problems with anger in years, man. I mean, I was like, I don't get angry about anything. Parking tickets, just whatever. I'm just go with the flow. I started doing this, and I started getting super aggro.
Mm-hmm.
And I would call him and be like, dude, what the hell? There seems to be a correlation between me really devoting myself to this practice and now I'm like a real dick. And he was like, perfect.
Right.
That's great. That's exactly what you want. Because
the contractor just ripped the wall down and look,
dude.
There's a rat infestation back there. You didn't even know it. You thought you got rid of that 20 years ago, but it's still back there.
That's the thing.
Now we can get rid of it, you know, because now it's exposed.
And that's so true, because then I just kept with the practice and have ever since. I get annoyed by stupid shit. Like this morning, I was calling Blue Shield to like redo my billing thing. I couldn't log in the website. I couldn't, the password reset. It wasn't work. All that like technical drama. Like I'll get pretty irritated at that. But I don't have like resentment toward people, or there's no one that I haven't forgiven. I mean, I don't get the big anger. It's like little petty stuff is just irritating to me. But I'm so grateful to be largely free of like the real anger and the rage that I suffered from in my whole life. And that's got to be from being steadfast in my commitment to get through the first rocky stages of the meditation practice and just allow that stuff to kind of dissipate. Can you talk about the stress release aspect of meditation?
Yeah. So, I mean, just kind of extrapolating the rehabilitation. So what happens is when the body is releasing stress. So a lot of people say, I have a monkey mind. And that's a misnomer. Your mind is not monkey at all. It could be active, but if you look at the mind sort of like a speaker, right? What that mind is projecting, what the speaker is projecting is what's coming out of the channel, that whatever channel is tuned into. And so the stress release is a particular channel where the body is releasing old accumulated stress, and meditation is sort of the release valve or the outlet for it. So when you are releasing stress, it can cause your mind to feel extraordinarily active during the meditation, maybe even outside of the meditation. And so it's really a monkey body syndrome. It's not a monkey mind. It's the body is being purified, it's being rehabilitated, and it's coming out through the filter of consciousness that you experienced when it went in. You felt it as a mental and a physical phenomenon when you experienced the stress initially. And when it's leaving, the same thing. You may have a physical phenomenon. You may have some active thoughts or maybe some very emotional or sensational experiences in meditation. But to think it's originating in the mind or it's centered in the mind is kind of like thinking that the sound coming out of the speaker is actually happening inside of the speaker. And you pick up the speaker and get all upset with the speaker, bad speaker, you're an enemy of sound speaker, and throw the speaker against the wall. And actually the sound's coming from a completely different source. The speaker is just projecting what's leaving or what's being transmitted through that contraption known as the radio or the stereo or whatever. So the mind is like that. The mind is just the outlet for whatever is leaving the body.
That's a cool way to frame that. It sounds like you're not of the spiritual perspective that we should demonize the mind
Not at all.
and the ego.
That's no. We
I think
need
where
to
a lot of us get lost in that,
No.
like, oh God, I'm having lustful thoughts, or I'm jealous, or
No.
these
no.
animal, human, instinctual drives come up, and then we condemn ourselves as sinners or that we're not spiritual. When it's actually like I think you said, the ego's doing what it's supposed to do. The mind is actually taking care of us.
Yeah, the mind is part of the whole thing. It's like saying your left arm is the enemy, because it has a little. It feels sore after doing biceps. Like, it's ridiculous. After doing pull-ups or something, your biceps feel sore. It's not. There's nothing wrong with your arm. It's just a function of you training it differently than maybe you've trained it before in the past. And so when the mind and all that is doing its thing, if you have an imbalanced mind, that's a function of an imbalanced body. So form adapts to function, right? And if the function has been running around, fighting things and being afraid of things and being sad, then it's going to cause your mind to habituate in certain ways, which may make you feel as though things are a little bit off balance. And if your body is not rested properly, it's not fed properly, it's not loved properly, then it's going to show up somewhere in the mind. There's nothing wrong with the mind, though. The mind has all the potential and all the capability to reshape itself in a different way if you break the symmetry, if you change the pattern. And so for most people who don't meditate, the pattern is just this kind of surface level awareness where 90% of the thoughts and emotions and feelings that you have today are from yesterday. 90% of those thoughts are from the day before yesterday. So there's not really much newness happening. So the brain is continuing to hardwire itself to continue to react and respond and process information in the same way on a daily basis, which gives rise to that kind of Groundhog's Day feeling. And if most of your Groundhog's Day thoughts tend to lean towards negativity or fighting and fleeing, that's what people describe as monkey mind or busy mind. But the truth is that, technically speaking, we all have the same number of thoughts. Everybody who's human has 60 to 90,000 thoughts, one new thought every third of a second. But nobody's complaining about having too many happy thoughts, right? No one's complaining about having too many creative thoughts. No one's complaining about having too many blissful thoughts. So if my mind is as busy as your mind is, but I'm not complaining, then does that technically mean that there's something wrong with the anatomy of your brain versus the anatomy of my brain? Or is it something else? Is it something based on perception? Is it something based on a state of awareness or state of consciousness or inability to rest or sleep and all of that? And so when you measure cortisol levels in the average person's bloodstream, you see somebody's cortisol levels are a lot higher than say mine are, right? It's not surprising to know that person's probably not sleeping well at night, because cortisol by nature stimulates you. Why? Because you've told your body that you're running away from danger so many times that one day the body, which is very efficient, tells itself, well, it's way easier to it's way more economical to stay in this fight or flight reaction permanently than it is to go out of it and come back and go out and come back and go out and come back. So then you have the body habituating towards responding stressfully, which means stimulating itself with good reason, because it's on the hunt for danger. It's always looking for danger. So then late at night, when you get home, your brain is tired from having to keep you safe and you lie down. The body's like, hold on one second. Why do you think this is safe? We could get attacked at any moment. And so you end up staying up, tossing and turning, and worrying about everything that's going to happen the next day, which probably is not going to happen, but it's all these potential outcomes, which is also a function of stress chemistry in the body. And it just starts snowballing from there. And then that's what leads to other things like high blood pressure and other kinds of adult onset illnesses and diseases. But, anyone who's listening to this podcast, if you type in on Google symptoms of fight or flight reaction, go to any of those websites, you'll see lists of, hundreds of these symptoms. Anything that you suffer from, anything that anyone else suffers from as far as symptoms of illnesses and diseases, they're all on that list. And there's an undeniable connection between stress accumulation in the body and disease and illness. And so that's why they're calling stress the silent killer, because most people don't make that connection. We treat the Band-Aid we do the whack-a-mole thing, you know. Oh, I'm, you know, having a cough, or I'm having this other thing happen. Let me go take this pill, which has all these crazy side effects. Nobody's really getting into the root cause of it. And that's one of the things that meditation does really well, provided that you don't treat it like emergency medicine. You have to treat it as preventative medicine. You start doing it now, ideally when you're healthy and feeling good and happy. And that way you kind of pad yourself against all the craziness that it will eventually happen to all of us in life. And, you know, it doesn't mean that you're never going to have emotions. You're never going to get triggered. You may have all of those things, but your bounce back will be to your kind of balanced, peaceful, centered self.
So, in regard to thought, then, and the mind, it sounds like from your perspective, it's not so much about the quantity of thought, but about the quality of thought.
Right.
So,
yeah,
you're just going to frustrate
if the quality. If the quality is high, then it doesn't matter what the quantity is.
Right. Because I find, as just a result of this and just the whole lifestyle that I've been living, that if I just sit down and chill, meditate, just take some time, what usually comes out is a lot of very positive, creative thought, more so than like, oh my God, what am I going to do about this? What am I going to do about that? I mean, there's times that I get stressed, but most of the time, if I just let my mind just turn loose, it comes up with really great ideas. You know, it's like, it's actually becoming more and more my friend.
Right. And we're not unique. This is for everyone that's available to everybody with the mind.
So
mind.
In getting that separation from those sort of animal drives of the ego and the negative thoughts of the mind, I think a lot of people's basic understanding of meditation is that it creates this gap of separation where you get to spend more of your time in a witness perspective, where you're not so closely identified with your thoughts and feelings, but rather kind of watching the phenomena from across the room, in a sense. Would you say that that's been your experience?
I would say yes and no. I think there's definitely some spaciousness that occurs, but it's not necessarily that you're aware of it while you're in the process of it. It's something you may reflect back on, and you know, it appears, you know, anytime something kind of bad happens, like you get into an accident of some sort, people describe it as time slowed down, and you know, things happen really slowly. And it kind of feels like that, like you have more time. So a lot of the time when we don't stop and smell the roses, so to speak, is because we feel like we don't have enough time. Naturally, it causes us to tune out sounds and aromas and visuals and things that otherwise would be perceived as very charming, very beautiful. You know, there's this really interesting. You probably heard of this this experiment that was conducted by the Washington Post journalists in 2007. They planted a world famous violinist in one of the metro stops.
Oh yeah, tell this story. This is dope.
Yeah, planted him in a metro stop one morning during rush hour, and had him pull out his $3 million violin and play some of the most intricate music pieces that had ever been written, ever been composed, things that he had just performed for $1,000 a person tickets at the Boston Symphony Orchestra a few nights before. And he's down in this subway, in L'Enfant Plaza subway in DC during rush hour, and people are just racing by. People are like speaking up on their phones to talk over him because he was distracting them. And only, I think, one or two people stopped within 45 minutes of him playing the same music he played previously for a sold out audience. But he was wearing a baseball cap and jeans, and nobody recognized him. And the only humans who stopped for more than a few seconds were children before they were drug away by their parents. And so the premise behind the experiment was to see if at an inconvenient time, under inconvenient circumstances, would people be able to stop and appreciate beauty? And apparently not as much as we would think we would. Because I think in hindsight, if anyone were to ask you, if you heard a world famous violinist during a rush hour, would you stop? And you'd probably say, yeah, I would stop. But the truth of the reality is, no, you probably wouldn't stop. And probably I wouldn't either, right? Just statistically speaking. So what I find in meditation is that it gives you a greater chance of just appreciating more of that kind of beauty, the unsuspecting beauty, because it opens up your senses and it allows you to hear subtle things that other people don't necessarily hear, or see things. And, God knows what we're missing still, even with that power. But compared to just walking around in tunnel vision like most people do, it definitely opens up the horizon a lot more, and you can experience things a lot more. So it just feels like, oh, I have time for this, Whereas before you're thinking, oh, I got to get there at this time or whatever.
That experiment would have been awesome if they could do an isolated one where they have a subway full of meditators just passing through to see the difference. Because, dude, I feel like more and more all the time, I'm picking up on subtle cues in my environment, or just seeing the way the sun shines through a tree, or feeling the wind on my skin. Like that sensory experience is getting, and colors are brighter. And I'm just becoming much more alive feeling in my body, and much more aware.
And that's what attracted me about my teacher. When I said he was the happiest person, it wasn't because he was sitting there with a smile plastered on his face. He just had this sense of presence. Like there wasn't a care in the world, but he was still very much engaged in the world. And I think that if you try to manufacture it, it's actually very unattractive. You become one of those kind of woo-woo people who are always like stopping and
I'm just in the bliss right now.
Yeah, we're going to stop and just observe everything. And it feels very artificial. Whereas if it's natural and if it's embodied, it actually is very attractive.
That's interesting.
And because you're just kind of, you have this nice childlike innocence, but you almost don't even have to say anything about it,
Right.
You can just kind of have your experience and then keep things moving. And it's like everywhere you go, that's where you are, You could be in the post office and just be completely fascinated by everything that's happening around you. Or you can be in traffic and just be interested in looking at people's cars and like, wow, that's really interesting that she chose to wear that. And then that leads you to this other thought about how people spend 40 minutes with everything they have on. They put time and energy trying it on, probably trying on a few other things before that to try to figure out the right thing. And maybe it was on sale and maybe that was an inspiration, so you can kind of get into it. But it's not like you're sitting there going, oh, I have all this space right now in between my thoughts. And how wonderful was that, in the kind of masturbatory way.
I'm sitting here cracking up, dude, inside and now externally, because I had the craziest experience yesterday. And it totally relates to what we're talking about in meditation. I had a dentist appointment way out in the valley, dude, like deep space, like far out there. It takes about an hour and 20 minutes to get there or something. And of course, I'm like running late like I always am in the morning. And I have a thing in my car where when you're at like down to 50 miles to go on the gas thing, it beeps. But then it never tells you again. So if you don't like get gas at that 50 miles, it just silently runs out. And I'm on the 101 freeway at like 11 a.m. right at the 405. And I'm on the phone with my buddy. We're having a great chat. And all of a sudden, poof, my car just stops in the fast lane. And it's just like, we're done. Try to turn it back on, not happening. I get over like maybe 2 lanes. So now I'm in the center lane and I'm just like, interesting.
Your car stopped in the center lane during rush hour?
On the 101 freeway.
On the 101. You're that guy.
Yeah, I'm that guy. And I got to admit, I mean, I'll be totally honest, for a second, I was like, oh shit. I said, I got to go. I kind of freaked for a second.
I think anybody would have that reaction.
But here's what was dope, dude. And I swear to God, this is God's honest truth. I saw that little reaction for a second. And then I just said, well, here I am. I mean, I might as well have some fun with this. What are you going to do? Call AAA and they're like, yeah, cool. Well, yeah, sure. We'll be there in 40 minutes. And they, it's like, well, 40 minutes is an eternity when you're in the middle of the freeway. It's not safe, And I was like, really? No faster? Like, yeah, we'll put a rush on it, but that's it. I said, okay, interesting. And they're like, do you need us to call the police? And I said, well, I mean, there hasn't been an accident. No one else is involved. I guess not. I've never had this happen before. So what's protocol? And they're like, okay, bye, sir. And I sit there and there's honking, there's, people are queued up behind me, the whole thing. And so I thought, well, what could I do right now? Because I have to wait. And I thought, I did a half-assed meditation because I woke up late and thought, well, I could meditate right here.
You didn't pull the car over to the shoulder?
I couldn't get over there.
They wouldn't let you don't think?
I had no gas. It stopped.
But put it in neutral and just...
No, bro, it's uphill.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like on an incline. And
Could you back up and...
There was no going anywhere. I was just like at a dead stop. So I just threw it in park, put the hazards on. And then I would kind of meditate for 2 or 3 minutes. But then I had to open my eyes to see what was going on,
People were probably flipping you off left and right?
Well, the good news is, and I was late for the appointment, of course, so I called them. But I actually just started kind of having fun with it and I found it was uncanny that I was able to just accept the predicament I was in. And I just started doing Instagram stories, just having a good time, just entertaining myself while I was in there. And then finally, a highway patrolman on a motorcycle came up behind me. He's like, "What's up?" I'm like, "Yeah, out of gas." He's like, "Dude, you're supposed to call 911. We'll come and pull you to the side of the road." I was like, "Okay, noted for next time." And we had a really great interaction, and I was kind of having fun with the cop, and he was a really great guy, and it was just fine. It was no big deal. AAA came, gave me the gas, but dude, years ago, I could have spiraled into suicidal ideation over something like that, like hitting my steering wheel, freaking out, feeling stupid, being scared, I could have totally gone, circled the drain and just had it ruin my day. And I had a really great day. It was just not a big deal at all.
Yeah.
That's gotta be largely due to meditation.
Yeah.
And
awesome.
unplugging and being able to perceive when that fight or flight feeling is coming on.
Well, that's the thing too, is that, people, they come out of just an average daily meditation and they think, oh, nothing really happened. But you don't know the cumulative effects of all of those days of meditation until you have an experience like that. And that's where you get to see how it's affected you. So I always have to reassure people, look, good things are happening. Keep going. You may not be, exploding into bliss every single meditation or having conversations with the Buddha, but don't worry. If you are doing it on a daily basis, it's adding up. And when the big thing happens, it's not going to feel like a big thing.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm curious about something with you. You're one of the few people that have gone on a spiritual path that weren't motivated to do so by abject pain and trauma, it seems. Seemed like a pretty happy guy. Did you have good parents and a good childhood? And did they name you Light and why?
Oh man, those are all...
It's interesting that you were just like, yeah, I'm attracted to this. There's a subtle pull there. You weren't like, oh my God, I'm just got out of rehab or having these huge crisis.
No.
You just,
I had a really good childhood. I had a really good balanced childhood. I have to say, sometimes I do feel a bit kind of, like you want more to tell in your story because everyone has these such dramatic stories.
Right. I kind of enjoy mine, to be honest.
Right.
Gets people's attention. They're like, what?
Yeah. People really pay attention to those kinds of things, what you've overcome. And I honestly, I have not had a lot of challenges in terms of, self-inflicted challenges, especially. I think, being Black in America could be perceived as a challenge. That's definitely...
Was there a lot of... I picture Alabama being kind of backwards, like Leonard Skinner vibes. Was it difficult growing up there racially?
Growing up, you don't really... Because when you're a kid, you don't really... I don't think you really see it as much. It's more institutionalized. Going back as an adult, you definitely see it a lot more.
What kind of shit happens? Like people grab their purse when you walk by? Is it like that overt and hardcore, or are people just kind of rude?
No, because here's the deal. In places like Alabama, it's very segregated.
Okay.
You're not going to be in a lot of places where there's a lot of integration happening. There's white communities, Black communities. Well, this is LA too, I think what happens in places like LA or New York, where you have people from all over coming here and you don't know a lot of people and, bad things have happened to good people. I think people are a lot more guarded in places like this, believe it or not. I've been racially profiled more here than I've ever been in the South.
Wow.
Which is interesting.
Wow.
Yeah. In fact, I was going the other day. I was going to do a book interview in Marina Del Rey, and I have a Vespa, and my friend lived. She lives in this kind of apartment complex thing, and there's no parking over there. So she said, just park behind my car. I'm in space number whatever it was. So there were like 3 parking garages, and I'm looking for her space number. And I'm going to one garage, and I kept getting the wrong garage, and she kept saying it was the end, but I didn't know where the end was. So anyway, I was there for like 5 minutes going in and out of these parking garages on my Vespa. Had my little Will's leather, bag, and was dressed kind of like I'm dressed right now, which is, I'm wearing just some dark colored pants, and, I think I had this sweater on, and then this sheriff's truck is driving down and says, "Excuse me," he pulls me over. "Can I ask you some questions?" I said, "Sure." I wasn't sure if I would ran a stop sign or something like that.
Right.
He says, "So what are you doing here?" And he starts giving me, asking me 20 questions about what I'm doing there, who I'm going to see. And he says somebody called him and said some guy on a Vespa was going around about to break into someone's car to steal stuff. And that was the call.
Wow.
So
those guys need just, social etiquette lessons, but like you're wearing like a nice cardigan, you're dressed well, you have a very clean white t-shirt, you don't look like a gangbanger.
Right. But
and by the way, what criminal rides a Vespa, dude? Like, I'm like, that guy needs but that's just social classes.
Some person living in that complex looked at me for 2 seconds.
Right.
Driving around and in their mind, dark colored person driving around it looked like, I guess to them, I was looking into people's cars, but I was looking at the numbers written on the parking spaces.
Right.
Looked like I was going to be stealing something. So they called the cops. The cop was just coming out there to answer the call. The cop didn't see me and then come over and pull me over.
That's funny because anytime I've tried to call the cops, they take like 3 hours to get there and the shit's over by the time they
and
get
that's
there.
The other thing. I had only been there for like 7 minutes at that point. So apparently as soon as I got there, somebody saw me and called the cops right away.
That's funny. So maybe if you call 911, you just got to be like, "And it's a black man,
that's
sir."
Right.
They're going to be like right there.
Yeah. So things like that. It's like you're just doing your thing, and then you have to, you have to deal with that kind of stuff, which is just like, it's just. I spent 10 minutes going back and forth with him, and I'm of sound mind and body. I wasn't going to do anything stupid, but if I had like a child support payment that I had been, not making or something, I may have been silly enough to try to escape from the cop, or that's how those things happen.
Totally.
Something really bad happens from an innocent interaction that shouldn't have happened in the first place. That interaction should have never happened in the first place. So I mean, you could consider that to be a challenge or an adversity, because that doesn't end. That just keeps going. I'm 44 years old. And that's still happening to me.
Right.
I'm a meditation teacher. And that's still happening to me.
That's what I would have told the cop. Like, sir.
I'm like, do I look like I'm stealing something?
You might not understand this, but I'm like a peace teacher. I help people learn how to not do crimes and be dicks. That's interesting, man. So well, for whatever reason, you ended up here, and you're bringing the light. I wanted to ask you one thing as we wrap up here, just because this has been a little bit of a sticking point, and I find it so strange when I've told my friends about, you should learn Vedic meditation or TM or something like that, where there's a fee involved, which can be kind of substantial. I think when I did my training, it was sort of an honor system, and you paid the teacher a week's pay, whatever that was, which I don't even know if I knew how much I made. I just kind of guessed and tried to not cheat. But when I've shared this practice with people, they're like get real tweaked out about having to pay because it's something spiritual, and shouldn't it be free? Like a Vipassana retreat is free and this and that. And I'm always like, dude, do you know how much more money you will make if you learn how to meditate? I think a lot of my success financially, professionally, and in every way is due to that. I'm like, dude, I would have paid a zillion times more than I paid monetarily. So do you, as a teacher, when you get to the point where you're like, and now here's how much you have to pay, do people push back on that? And when you learned, was there a barrier to entry because there was a fee involved?
When I learned, it was the same deal, sliding scale, week salary. And I looked at that as, that was the part that sold me. That I got to, on the honor system, go inside of myself and in good faith come up with that amount. And at the time, I wasn't really making a lot of money at all. I was a new yoga teacher. I was probably making $200-$300 a week. I probably had $900 in my bank account. And I said to myself, you know what, this is an opportunity for me to project to the universe or whatever what I want to make right now. And so I said, I'm going to give him $400. And so I went and I withdrew half my net worth from the ATM machine,
Right.
and I dropped it in the bucket. And that was how I started. And as a teacher, obviously, the thing that people I think associate with what we do, they don't appreciate all the training that went into it, right? And the expertise and the professionalism that comes with it. But B,
you didn't just take like a weekend course and, oh yeah, now I'm a meditation teacher.
Right. So when they compare it to things like, Headspace or some app, they're like, oh, well, this is only $10 a month or whatever. And, but you're basically, you're not paying for a technique. You're paying for having access to this person who's very much an expert in teaching you and supporting you in that technique. And you're also, from a teacher's point of view, you're basically saying whether or not you would be a worthy student. Meaning, there are a lot of people who think they already know everything about what it takes to do anything. And the fact that they would see their little $600 as more valuable than anything they can learn from this person, it's kind of like a litmus test to the teacher, because the teacher,
a pre-qualifier,
right? Because the teacher is going to give their all to this person, and they're going to continue to support this person for life. That's the exchange the teacher's making. And so, if that person's not willing to sacrifice a few $100s for that exchange, and that tells the teacher, okay, well, this person is not willing to become my student, and that's fine. Not everybody needs to become my student. Right? And it could be because we don't have the karmic relationship for this particular exchange. Maybe somebody else does. And so I think as a teacher, you learn not to personalize it as much. But when you do the math and you add up all the contact you have over the course of a lifetime, it's like a drop in the bucket. It's, as you say, it's invaluable. It's priceless even. But I think people have to arrive at that conclusion on their own. And that's one of the beauties of these sort of spiritual practices is, it's not as easy as people kind of think sometimes. It can be some of the more challenging practices because you are confronting your ego, you're confronting scarcity, you're confronting, how you spend your time. And a lot of that is very emotional. A lot of that it's almost a religion, how people spend their time and how they spend their energy and who they associate with. And a lot of those things are going to be challenged when you start a practice like this. And if you're not ready for that, then you need to do more research in what life is like when you're accumulating lots of stress and very little rest.
Right.
And once you arrive at the conclusion,
in recovery, we say that means you got to hit a bottom.
Right.
You got to hit the bottom. Oh, I think I have a drinking problem, but I'm not ready to change. I go drink more.
Yeah, go
that's
drink
what I always
more.
tell you. I go,
Exactly.
man, get off beer, get on vodka, man. Get it over with.
Yeah.
So that's
get to the
true.
bottom so you can be humble and you can go and because that's how all good student-teacher relationships start is one person is the clear teacher and the other person is the clear student, and the clear student takes instruction, applies it, and benefits.
Dude, and also just having skin in the game. When I paid for my practice, I wasn't going to leave after that weekend training or whatever and be like,
that's right.
I'm not doing that. I was like, hell no, I want to get my money's worth.
That's right.
It really encouraged me to actually, I used to set an alarm on my phone to remind me of my 2 meditations.
That's
and then
right.
It became habituated. So, so I agree. And I think it's just one of those things of what motivates someone. But that is one of the barriers that I come across with people are like, what? You got to pay? What? I'm like, dude. So you live in LA and you teach people. I'm always curious about this, and I've never asked Jeff this, but so when I learned, I think I figured out I made around $1,000 a week or something like that, and so I paid $1,000 if I remember right. But you probably teach a celebrity here and there, a big Hollywood producer. They might make $100,000 a week.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever had someone just pay you an exorbitant amount of money?
No, because here's what I did. I I put a bottom on mine, so the
Okay.
least amount is $500 if you're unemployed or you're a student. And so
Okay.
because I have a bottom, I thought it was fair to have a cap.
Oh,
on it.
interesting.
So I have a cap at $1,500.
Oh, really? Because I wouldn't have a cap myself. I'd be
Yeah.
like, you just produced what movie? You got what hit single and you have
Yeah.
the publishing? All right, cool.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of those guys want private sessions and stuff, so those those are going to be more expensive.
I
But
see.
I want to try to keep it accessible for as many
Yeah.
people as possible
I respect
without
that.
sacrificing the quality of the support and the instruction. So
I respect
that's the thinking behind that.
Last thing I'm going to ask you is, do you pray? And if so, how?
I pray to be, speaking of agape, I was spending a lot of time at agape, and one of the prayers that they pray in these affirmative prayers, where you kind of state what you are, or basically affirmations. And so one of the prayers that I resonated with the most is just to be used, to continue to use me for all of my gifts and talents, and remind me when I'm forgetting that what I'm here to do. So yeah, I'd say that prayer. I don't always articulate it like that, but I have that feeling tone of the prayer with me at all times. Just that sense of gratitude and willingness to be used.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. In closing, you've taught me a lot in this conversation. You've taught our listeners tons of great information and practices that they can incorporate into their lives. You've mentioned a couple of books that you like and teachers and things like that. Who would be 3 teachers or teachings that you might recommend people go check out if they're interested in where you came from?
Well, I would definitely recommend my book, Bliss More, How to Succeed in Meditation Without Really Trying. I wrote that book for people who were like me, my first few years of meditation, just feeling like I was hitting my head against the wall, but really interested in the practice, just not quite sure what to make of all the conflicting information. So I'd recommend my book. And I would also recommend The Alchemist, just as a wonderful little story of following your heart and seeing how it never leads you astray, and the appreciation for the unknown. I think the author did a really great job of articulating that when you move in the direction of the unknown and you get into that realm of uncertainty, that's where all the magic is happening. And then another book that I would recommend is Ram Dass's Be Here Now, just because he's a great storyteller, super funny, and I think it gives you a good context for how India still is very much today.
Yeah, awesome. I love Ram Dass's podcast too.
Yeah, I'm going to listen to that. I heard you mention
it's
that.
dope. Yeah, they play Raghu Marcus is the host, and he's his buddy from way back, and they were in India at the same time. But he's a really great archivist, and he brings out all of these old talks over the ages of Ram Dass's career and stuff like that. Just brilliant stuff. Really great stories and very useful information in an accessible way.
Amazing.
So yeah, thanks for the shout out for the book too.
Absolutely.
All right, so where can people find you on social media, websites, and all that jazz?
At Light Watkins, lightwatkins.com.
Easy enough. And they can
Easy
sign up
breezy.
for your daily newsletter there
At
too.
lightwatkins.com.
I saw you
yeah.
have a nice, attractive looking pop up when
Yeah.
you get to that page. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much for making the time to come by
Absolutely.
today.
Thanks for having me on. I'm really grateful to be able to talk to you and also to be able to speak to your audience.
Me too, dude.
And congratulations on your podcast. I've been watching it grow, and it's fantastic
fun,
to
man.
see. You're inspiring me to start one of these.
Oh,
But now that
awesome.
I see the whole setup, I'm like, I don't know.
Well, you don't have to do all this. It's the addict in me. I take shit to the extreme. Like literally every time I do an interview, I tell myself, Luke, you don't have to set up 15 cameras. Like you could have just come over and I set up the mic and we get a great episode. But I'm like, well, if we're going to be here, I might as well stack on as many things as I can.
It's great though. I'm really impressed.
So, yeah. Well, if you want any pointers, if you do decide to start a podcast, I'm happy to assist you with whatever I've learned
Perfect.
so far.
Fantastic.
All right, dude. Thanks again.
All right.
Hey, you. Wake up. Yo, it's not time to meditate yet. We got to do the show outro. I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank our illustrious guest, Light Watkins, for dropping some very accessible meditation knowledge on us. I'd also like to thank our sponsors today, Four Sigmatic. You can go to foursigmatic.com/Luke Storey and use the code Luke Storey to save 15% off all of their medicinal mushrooms and herbs and all the radness they have going on. And then, of course, Organifi. You can go to Organifi.com/Luke. Organifi is spelled with an I, not a Y. If you want to score some Organifi stuff and save some cash, you want to use the code LIFESTYLIST to save 20% off your first order. Last but certainly not least, a company that's doing amazing things in the health industry, and that's my bros over at Health IQ. The link there is healthiq.com/lifestylist, where you can take a quiz and save between 4 and 33% off your life insurance. Now, life insurance is one of those things where you're like, oh, I don't need that. And to be honest, I don't have it yet myself, but I'm not married and I don't have kids. Like, no one's going to benefit if my ass croaks. But I'm going to tell you, the minute I go on even like a date that I think is promising, I'm going to sign up with Health IQ and see if they can hook me up with some discounted life insurance. And what's cool about Health IQ, in case you missed the plug in the mid-roll, in the middle of the episode, because you fast-forwarded that shit, I'm going to tell you what's up. If you lead a healthy lifestyle and you're paleo, vegan, you work out, you do CrossFit, you wear some kind of tracking device, and you can prove that you're healthy, you actually get your life insurance cheaper, which is how it should be. Like, this is the new model, you guys, and that's why I love supporting Health IQ. If you want to just go directly to the quiz, you can go to healthiq.com/quiz and make sure you use the code LIFESTYLIST once you get over there. All right, so I think that's about it. I just want to, again, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you want to follow me over on Instagram, I'm really easy to find. My handle over there is @LukeStorey. And actually, as I'm recording this outro right here, I'm looking at my iPhone and Instagram Live is running right there. And you could be one of those lucky people watching me do all this wacky behind the scenes stuff on the reg if you were to follow me on Instagram. My stories are pretty badass. And then you can also come over to Facebook, join my Facebook group. Just search The Lifestylist Podcast. And I also do tons of live streaming like I'm doing right now as I record my intros and outros. So I don't always just do boring, weird stuff like that alone in my studio. I also do a lot of live streaming of interviews. So had you been following me on Instagram, had you been in the private Facebook group, you could have watched this here interview with Light live in real time with all of the bloopers and mistakes and all the stuff that really makes behind the scenes footage fun. So follow me on Insta, and then don't forget to go to my store, lukestorey.com/store, where you can find links to all of my top health related recommendations. Pass this episode on to a friend, and I'll catch you next week with Jasmine Hemsley, where we talk about Ayurveda meets paleo and how to cook some good damn food. This episode of the Lifestylist Podcast was produced by podcastmasters.net.